Why should I use you? We need a very good answer to that question. And the answer to that question does not start with, well, I've been doing this for 35 years and I'm a handsome bald man with glasses and you should see me play drums. Nobody cares.
They don't care.
They only care about themselves. Outside of food and water, second most primary need for a human being is to be heard and understood.
Hallelujah. Amen to that.
Just be yourself, but be the best version of yourself, and that's going to be great. Sales today is closer to management consulting than it is to used car sales of yesteryear. What selling was pitching and cajoling and doing demos. And I'm kind of dancing like a monkey to do it. I'm talking at you. It's so hard, Sinjin, to not interrupt you because you're speaking at 125 words a minute. My brain's listening to you at 400. So I want to interrupt you because it's hard not to be distracted. When you're talking to someone, allow the pregnant pause.
Traditional sales training, I'm going to be a bit provocative here. I think it's broken. What are your thoughts on it? Right, this week, team, I say this every single week and you'll be bored of me saying this. I pinch myself. Maybe it's the way I ask. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'm persistent. But we have a lovely guy. He's also Canadian, which really, really ranks for me. His name's Mark Cox. And some of you will know him. He's written some beautiful, beautiful books. I would say he's been named one of the top sales consultants by Selling Power Magazine's 2 years running. He's been doing this for 25 years. He's closed massive deals, including a single transaction worth $1 billion. He's the founder of In-Funnel Sales Coaching, one of the most respected sales training businesses on the planet. And he's written a landmark thumper of a book called Learn to Love Selling, which we're going to talk about, which is the universal B2B sales book. It's endorsed by Andy Paul, who is a previous guest. And I put Mark up there with Andy Paul, Richard Harris, Todd Capone, Mark Hunter, all these wonderful, wonderful people we've had on our show. Mark, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you and have you here.
Sinjin, thank you so much for having me. And what a gracious introduction, by the way. Thanks so much. I know those other guys, and to put me in the category with those folks is, I think you're doing a real service to me. And on a fun note, I had a very nice coffee with Andy in New York, maybe 3-4 months ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, great guy.
Such a small world. And as I said before we hit the button in, you're so generous because we know how busy you guys are, you guys and girls are. So first of all, Mark, how's the band going?
Well, what a great, thank you for doing some research. Super fun, Sinjin. So in Toronto here, we have a charity called CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. And they're in the middle of building one of the largest facilities in the world for addiction and mental health. And as it turns out, our singer in that band, who's been a very close friend for 40 years, he's on the board of CAMH. So whenever we play these quarterly gigs that are super fun, all the money goes to their No One Left Behind campaign, and we're so privileged to be a part of it.
So good. Now, because I stalk you a little bit, and you know, I'm one of these people that stalk and lurk, but I don't say much.
Thank you, by the way. So you're the one actually downloading the tunes and all that kind of good stuff. We appreciate that.
Tell me the genre. Are you rock or what indie or what is it?
Yeah, it's 90s rock. So it's a cover band, Sinjin, and we do sort of 90s rock with Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots, Foo Fighters. These guys were a band for 10 years before I joined. So they all used to work for HSBC Bank, finance and compliance, senior executives. And as every rock band does, they just went through a bunch of drummers. And eventually my old pal came to me and said, hey, do you want to try and, sit in on this with us? And I've been playing with them for about 3 years now. It's just pure joy. It's just pure play. Super
Good
fun.
on you. And I love what you've done in terms of the higher purpose with your charity. So that's awesome. By the way, just quickly, we're going to bore the listeners straight away. I tried to be a drummer when I was younger, but failed miserably. And I wanted to be the guy from Def Leppard, but I had 2 arms, not one.
That poor, and he's so great.
He's so good.
Oh my God, what he does with his feet.
It's insane. It's absolutely. I used to listen to Def Leppard while I was on the tractor and pulling down greenhouses on my parents' farm, and I thrashed that album Hysteria like hard.
Photograph was so huge. By the way, I love that band, love that album. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
they're serious, and I think they got put in by Brian May of Queen. By the way. he was the one who inducted them.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
isn't it? And he was saying how much he thought they were great, but that I forget the name of that drummer escapes me, but
Rick,
he's a great benchmark.
We'll do him service in a minute. And last thing, we're now really boring the listeners is I'm showing my age because I think you and I are of similar age. We had Live Aid back in the day when
Yes.
I would have been about, I think, probably 7 or 8. I think it was 1980 or something. 82?
It was 85.
85. So I would have been 11 years old, and I watched Queen rock it in Wembley, and then they went on Concorde and then rocked it in New York. And they
Crazy.
literally did. And my kids, it blows their mind. I said, because I play these tunes in the car, and they're like, "Oh, you're such a boomer." And I go, "Man, do you realise?" And I took them to see Concorde up at Duxford, which is an airplane museum near where we went to school in Cambridge. And we touched the Concorde, not the one they went on, but the one that is the fastest Concorde in the whole world.
Wow.
Mach 2. So we could get, they just blows their brains because, I talked about VHS cassettes and, floppy disks and stuff like this. I'm really showing my age now. And they're like, and I said, but, I really would have been loved to have gone on Concorde. It would be my bucket list. So,
can you imagine it being a Live Aid?
Oh man, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Now, last thing. Sorry, I'm now really boring. So my parents have a farm in the UK, and when Oasis did their concert at Nebworth, it was the largest, loudest concert in the world. And again, I was too young to go. I could hear it, and it was 20 miles away.
No kid, 20 miles away.
20 miles away. And it was so loud, we could hear it. And it was one of those beautiful, well, it's not often you have those, but beautiful, warm, light nights in the UK. And I remember walking around, I could literally hear the concert. Not like I was there, but thankfully it wasn't Woodstock Mark II. But anyway, we're going to stop now because the listeners
we'll do that on a different podcast.
We'll do that on a different one.
The Boom to Rock podcast. I'm sure there's one of those out there.
All right, my friend. Now, you've got this book, wonderful book, which I've read. I'm sure thousands of others.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because readers are leaders, right? So, you got the more you learn, the more you earn. We spoke to Mark Hunter on the last episode about this, and he lived near Warren Buffett in Omaha. And I said, "Oh, you're Omaha." And, so Warren Buffett talked about the more you learn, the more you earn. And so you've got this book, wonderful book. I'll hold it up here and it's going to be in the show notes. Learn to love selling. Now, most people don't love selling. So let's start there. What have they got to do to get that identity shift? Because most people, as you and I both know as practitioners, sales chooses them. They don't choose sales, and they are their accidental default salesperson.
Yes.
How do you go about? How do we get this shift between, I've got to sell and I hate selling and my identity? It's an identity shift. It's a mindset shift. Where will we start there? Should we start there?
Yeah. What a great question, by the way. So we've probably done 100 podcasts promoting that book. That's the first time that question's been asked that way, St. John. So it's just spot on.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think the easiest way to learn and then love selling is to understand what selling really is, define selling. In the old days, back in the days of Live Aid, what selling was pitching and cajoling and doing demos. And so you'd be in this conversation where I'm trying to persuade or cajole or convince you of something in a short period of time, and I'm kind of dancing like a monkey to do it. I'm talking at you.
Yeah.
And in those days, there were, what I call talking brochures. Selling was a little bit of talking brochures. The reality, one of the major shifts in B2B selling over the last 20 years, 30 years is we don't need talking brochures. We have talking brochures. So that's what the internet is. It's a talking brochure.
Yeah.
So sales today is closer to management consulting than it is to used car sales of yesteryear. And so management consulting, all you're doing is you're trying to help a client or a prospect, in a way that first benefits them and then hopefully benefits you. So you're helping, not pitching at.
100%.
So instead of talking and demoing, I'm actually asking great questions and having a conversation. The conversation's less about me and my product or service, and it's all about you, St. John, your business, the desired outcomes you're trying to achieve. I'm trying to figure out how do I get you and your business to a better future. When you start to think of that, what do I want to do every day? Do I want to jump on a call and talk at people and talk at people who don't want to be spoken at and pitch and demo and walk them through PowerPoint and bore them to tears? Or do I want to get on a conversation with St. John and actually learn about his business and what he's doing and what's working and what isn't working? And so the people in sales today, they're authentically curious. They're intellectually curious as well. So they can't wait to learn about you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest, most obvious shift that helps us start to enjoy what we do.
Could I then, because I absolutely fall in love with the word curiosity, and it's funny, the more curious you get, the more money you make. It's a crazy thing, because the more you help others, the more they help you.
Yeah.
That butchered quote of Zig Ziglar, but the legend that he was. Some people, though, it's quite hard to develop that curiosity. And so it's that whole kind of like nature nurture, or are they born with it, or can we make them? It's like leadership, are they born with it, those traits, or can we actually coach them? So developing curiosity, some people, Mark, we could talk for hours here, but some people aren't even curious about themselves.
Yeah.
Where do you start developing curiosity if it's not ingrained, if someone's just that sort of feature creature? And we talk about how traditional sales training is pretty burnt and broken, but maybe we stay there first around the person. How do we shift them or develop that curiosity, that insatiable curiosity?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the easiest way for people out there to think about this would be, for your business and your industry, if I wanted to be able to do a size up on your business, St. John, what are the things I need to know so that I could figure out what's your business, how are you doing, how do you compete and win in the market, what's your value proposition to your market? To develop that curiosity initially, let's say I was new out of college or university, I might create a list of these questions. The second thing I'd probably do to develop my own authentic curiosity, read. So I would read the newspaper, I would read Bloomberg, I would read Harvard Business Review, and start to learn about different businesses. And they always seem so complicated. And then the more you do it and the more companies you work with, you realize it's really not very complicated at all.
Same patterns.
But it's all the same thing. Product, service, who do you sell? How do you compete and win in the marketplace? So there are other people, by the way, some of the guests on our podcast that I've really enjoyed speaking with. Somebody named Diane Hamilton is actually one of the thought leaders on curiosity. And she'd been a syndicated radio host. She'd interviewed some of the most successful people in the world, like Oprah, and heads of businesses, heads of government, like incredible. And then after doing the syndicated radio show, she said, hey, I noticed this common trend. Every one of these people defined curiosity as one of the main reasons they were successful. So she went and got a PhD focused on this.
Amazing.
And she's written 2 great books. We've had her on the podcast twice. I really like her framework. Her name is Diane Hamilton.
I'm scribbling. You can hear me writing it down and flicking pages. Awesome. We are definitely going to look at Diane Hamilton, and we will, again, generous as ever, we'll put that stuff in the show notes.
Please.
So how how do you develop curiosity if you're not someone who maybe is starting from not ground zero, but you fall into sales? In my world, they're rural salesmen women. They might not like the concept of sales. They're certainly not falling in love with it, and they're selling to hard-ass farmers that price them, and we'll talk about all of that in a minute. But how do they get curious about, how do they develop that curiosity about themselves, about their prospects, and about what they do?
Well, first of all, I'd start with there's a couple of other great resources to read. So the first one is going to sound so silly, St. John, and somebody's going to say, well, how old is Mark Cox? Is he 175 years old quoting this book? But it's How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
That's a good book. Yeah.
So every year, check out the New York Times bestseller list nonfiction. It's on it every year, and it was written in 1939.
I know. It's seminal. It's timeless. It's what we call the Lindy effect? Is that what they call it?
And explain the Lindy effect to me again.
The Lindy effect is that something that's being tested by the time is worthwhile. So sometimes everything's shining new, but things that have been around, concepts, frameworks, books, authors, pay attention to those, which is what you're saying here.
Oh, man, I am so taking the Lindy effect from this podcast, St. John. I knew I was going to learn a lot today. I'm taking that away. That is awesome.
I'm sweating bullets now. Hopefully I've got it right. I'm pretty sure I have. But it's like, it's like the barbell effect that Nicholas Taleb talks about in Black Swan, like look for things that have been around for a really, really long time, not things that are new. But so curiosity, I'm so glad you said that. Well done for the big shout out to Diane Hamilton, 2 books on your podcast twice. So let's bridge this a little bit further. How do you develop self-awareness in salespeople? Because I think you and I both know why that's so important. How do you go about it?
Well, I think coaching comes into play. This is where it's really important to have mentors and to have coaches. And in, some of the clients we work, of course, sales leaders. So not every entrepreneur has that opportunity where there can be a second set of eyes. But one of the things I think that's really important to develop that self-awareness is there are tests you can do. You look for guidance and feedback from other people. And so a couple of the tests, we like what's called a PRINT test, capital PRINT. There's another test called the Strengths Finder test, Strength Finders. Yes, that's right. Kolbe is another one. Kolbe is a very well-known test, KOLBE. But I think if you've got growth orientation, you're open to testing and assessing yourself, because in my view, whatever you get back from any test, there's no good or bad answer. It's just the truth. All progress starts with the truth.
100%.
And so if I understand I'm going to have certain tendencies, if I'm going to understand that I have certain triggers, over my career, certainly I enjoy speaking. I enjoy talking. I think I have answers sometimes. I may have had some coaches who said, take a breath, in the middle of a conversation, let's get a little more active about listening, allow a pregnant pause, let somebody finish their thought. You don't have to try to be the smartest person in a room. So I think one of the things that people who are great at anything typically have had some mentors or coaches that have helped them get to that stage, and they continually look for the 5, 6, 7% to improve, so they're open to continually developing. So you think of Atomic Habits, James Clear, let's just get a little better. Let me understand, hey, if I'm St. John, I'm a great podcaster. I'm great at running these interviews. My guests feel fantastic when they're on, but I'll still watch my podcast and maybe figure out, is there 2 or 3 things that I could do next time to make it even better? Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not fantastic. It just means I'm always trying to get just a little bit better. Yeah. So I think for folks out there listening, and one of the things that's sometimes tough is sometimes you feel like these assessments are judgment. Or you feel, like you're an imposter. You've got imposter syndrome. I think it's helpful for everybody to know we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome. So thinking about things like another great book, Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. Seminal. But sometimes even just understanding the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset helps somebody process, okay, I want to get a little better at something. I want to try not be defensive. Maybe I'm going to talk to 2 or 3 of my friends. Maybe I'm going to be gutsy enough to role play, a practice sales call with someone and record it on Zoom or Teams and then watch myself to see how I come across.
Yeah, terrifying.
Isn't
like
it?
Yes, it is. I mean, honestly, that is such good advice. One of the best. Why is it, do you think, that some sales reps don't even listen to their sales calls?
Well, I think there's probably a couple of reasons. Sometimes being pretty good at something, we get into a habit. And I think you get into this comfort zone that I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to do this. Very dangerous place to be. So that's where you need that sales leader or that mentor who takes you outside a comfort zone. The second thing, this is kind of a fun, I forget the name of this actual dynamic, St. John, but you remember when we were kids and we recorded our voice on our phone the first time and played it back and you went, oh my God, is that what it sounds like?
Yeah.
And you never like it because you hear your voice in your head when you hear it. There's actually a dynamic associated with that. There's this concept. It's even worse for video. Yeah. So I think what you have to do is have the wherewithal to say, okay, the first 3 or 4 times I listen to myself on a sales call, I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to put up with it because I'm trying to find 1 or 2 things to improve.
I so agree, because the reason I ask it is I see the best salespeople, the 5% that make the 95% of the deals, because that power law, that Pareto principle is much more exaggerated, as you know, and I know, and all our wonderful guests know.
Yes.
They are self-motivated. They kick their own ass, and they don't wait for the mentor or the manager to listen to the call. My guys travel a lot. They're in big countries like Canada, like America, Australia, and they're like listening back to their sales calls, which they can do and go, oh, I got the name wrong, or I noticed that they went really quiet when I mentioned price, or I didn't build the business case, or I didn't secure the next step, or I didn't identify the buying committee, or I didn't establish pride and urgency, or I didn't frame, or my tone was rushed. I mean, that is a sign of a professional, and they don't need to be Kobe Bryant or Magic Johnson or whoever, but those guys and girls, they're obsessed with getting better.
Yes.
That's what puts them in the top 5%. Did you know as well, I've learned this fun fact, in the Olympics, Winter Olympics has just been in Italy, 5% of the athletes win 95% of the medals.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. So when it comes to world championships and Olympians, 5% pool of the athletes. So if you look at like tennis as well, which I love, 5% win 95%. So it's funny, I think, because you're a sports nut like me. We have rugby, you have your hockey, and you love your hockey. You see, I've been stalking you. I don't know your team. But anyway, I know you're pretty hardcore on it. And it's the same thing. The sports analogy, the thing I was like, why do reps not? But I think you've explained that beautifully, that probably sometimes familiarity breeds complacency.
Yes.
My words, not yours. And otherwise it's like, just listen to your calls. And I think what Mark's saying here, guys, yes, you will suck and it will be yucky and it will be like going to the gym, getting a new muscle. And I mean, I have to do videos now, Mark. I can't stand them. No, I'm a confident dude, but I can't stand them because I think, oh, God, do I look like that? And do I sound like that? But you got to get over it, eh?
You do. And gang, by the way, my belief is, sometimes it's helpful also to have a second or third set of eyes on these. And if you're a coach, by the way, if you're out there listening to this and you run a sales team, one of the things to help your team with is if you listen to a sales call with them or watch one of their sales calls, ask them to first find 2 or 3 things they like. And what you're going to find, it's such an interesting dynamic. We're all the same. We do this in large training workshops with people when we're working with them. It's almost impossible. They default to saying, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I say, excuse me, I asked if you could find 2 or 3 things you like. And some people go, I can't see anything. And I go, are you crazy? You did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. You were fantastic. Yeah. So I think we have this tendency, certain cultures have this tendency, you don't want to boast. You don't want to be too much bravado. You don't want to be too overconfident.
In Australia and New Zealand, we call it the tall poppy syndrome. I think you might have it in Canada as well.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah. We're trained. I mean, my parents were British, so I would talk about quiet confidence. I can tell you
because my parents are British too. It's amazing.
There we go. I knew I liked you for a reason.
Like brother from another mother, really, pretty much.
There you go. But certainly, when we're on the sports pitch, if we did something great, they are not cheering, going, my son's great.
No, there's no whoop-whoop. There's no whoop-whoop.
No.
Maybe like I mean, my dad as a father, he hardly came and watched me play rugby, and when he did, he was probably on his phone. So, yeah.
Yeah, chat maybe on the drive home, hey, that you had a solid game and so on and so forth. But there's no, oh my gosh, how about him? It's what I would call a quiet confidence. So I think recognizing when we're doing this, we're doing things 80%, 85%, fantastic. But just like sports and athletics and fitness and studying any profession, the ability to differentiate yourself by being 3% better than somebody else makes all the difference in the world. Huge. And that is the difference in the Olympics.
It is.
See the downhill skiing?
Seconds.
It's just insane.
Hundreds of seconds.
We just lost the hockey in the gold medal game. Incredible game. It's one shot in overtime. It's one shot, one save, and it's an inch away from hitting the goalie's skate to go in or not. It's an inch, not even that.
Yeah.
So when we all think about it, I just like to think, I always like of thinking progress, not perfection.
Love it.
So I don't think of what I can't do. Same thing, we talked at the beginning, St. about bands and having a little fun there. Drumming is what's called limb independence. It's highly weird to have your 4 limbs doing 4 different things at 4 different tempos at 4 different times. What happens when you practice is it's the most uncoordinated, terrible thing in the world. And I've got a drum teacher who's so great. I still go to lessons, but he'll say, listen, I go, this is impossible. And nobody can do this. And he goes, yes, you can. Slow it down. And then he'll say, if you keep practicing for 15 minutes a day for 3 weeks, he said, 3 weeks from now, you'll have this down. I go, that's impossible. And then he knows, he can't explain the brain science behind it, but he's seen it so many times, and he's right. You just get a little better every day, a little better every week, and then suddenly you've got it. So I'd encourage everybody out there listening, if you're smart enough to listen to this podcast, this great podcast run by St. John, you're already growth-oriented. That's why you're listening to this. So give yourself a pat on your back. Show yourself some love for listening to this.
What a human. You're so right, Mark. Sometimes we don't need to be hoopla, but we just need to say we are actually making progress. And if you just and it's like what you like to talk about, James Clear and Atomic Habits, just that 1% can create 37%. So sometimes I think what Mark's saying to guys and girls is that you win at the margins, but it's not necessarily financial. So just work at those things and keep getting better. And I think your wonderful drum track, by the way, I very rudely looked up who the Def Leppard drummer was while we were talking. It's Rick Allen is his name.
Rick Allen, right.
And
Thank you.
He had a car crash and the band supported him. And then, oh my goodness, how good is he? But back to what we're talking about is you've got to get better, because I think the majority of salespeople, and this might sound generalization and people might get excited. I don't think the sales profession is generally getting much better. I think it's getting a lot worse. So I feel sometimes the only chance you've got to compete is to get better. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, no matter what profession we're in, we absolutely have to get better every day, week, month, and year. I think sales is unique for a couple of reasons, St. John. By the way, I got to call it out. This is a great podcast. You are super well read. I'll tell you what, next time I'm on your podcast, I'm going to study up a little more before I come on it. Get some of those references so I can stay current. But you're super well read on everything I'm throwing out.
Thank you.
But I think, so the last time I took a look at a stat for the U.S., because everybody knows U.S., 1 in 9 people are in a professional sales job. That's according to the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics. We grab all those people, we put them into one place. They're the 5th largest state in the U.S. Okay, 5th largest state in the U.S. So everybody's in a professional sales job. The second thing is you do see a lot of research from people like Gardner and McKinsey and everything says, hey, 1 in 3 people turn jobs every year. Less than 1 in 2 meet quota. So I do think, sometimes I do think the numbers are a little skewed toward negativity. One of the things I would look at is salespeople do amazing things, because you'd see these software companies growing at 20% year over year, 30% year over year, 40% year over year. That's because of the sales organization. So whether quotas are fair and how are they created and how are we measuring and all those kind of good things, what I do know is there's a lot of salespeople helping a lot of clients out there achieve meaningful business outcomes. And those salespeople generally are intelligent, driven, humble, passionate, and optimistic. So we see this all over the place. So those 5 attributes we would hire on, we like hiring on for B2B sales.
Can you give me those? Sorry, Mark, to be so rude and interrupting.
No, it's great.
5 again, because I think it's really important they hear them. Give me your top 5.
Sure. My top 5, and by the way, St. John, I'd love to hear yours. Our top 5 would be intelligence, drive, humility, passion, and optimism.
Brilliant. I will note those. I'll give you. I love it when my guests then start interviewing me, because I actually really do like that. But I always get a little bit shit scared when they do that. But I'll do my best. The first, because remember we're agricultural here, so we don't need to be too polished. The first thing I look for is self-awareness.
Nice.
The second thing I look for is conscientiousness. So
Yeah.
doing what they need to do. And then the third one I look for, which is our favorite, is curiosity.
Yeah,
They
fantastic.
are very, so that would be my top three, because I'm a guy that is a 3 or a 5. I can't remember any more than 5 things. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
same here.
3. But I think your list is very good. Mine, you guys be the judge.
I love your list too.
Yeah. But I mean, I think what it is, it's never one thing. It's lots of things. And if it was one thing, we'd all have it fixed anyway. And this is why you and I and everyone, all my wonderful guests, but we're continually learning and getting better. Now, I want to move the conversation on, Mark, to this question, which I've been wanting to ask. You're in this privileged position, like me sometimes, where we are coaching sales leaders responsible and in charge of their charges. And there's a lot that goes right and there's some things that go wrong. I've got this question, burning question I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask other guests, so I'm going to inflict this one on you. And when I say inflict, I don't mean it in that way. I'm really interested in your answer here, because we've got some rural business owners. They can be in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Aussie, New Zealand, wherever they are, thankfully listening to very clever blokes like you. And where is it, if you were a sales leader, where does your responsibility as a coach to your team end when they're not doing the things that you're coaching them to do?
What a tough but great question. Where does it end?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple things to think about. So I think as a sales leader, you need a point of view as to what they need to do to be successful. So we start to think about sales strategy. I can't just say, get out there and give me $3 million. I think I need a point of view as to how do we get to the 3 million? Well, we got a bid on 9 million. That our average deal size is 500K. I got to get a pipeline of X. I get a pipeline. So from first meeting to qualified prospect to boom, boom, I have to be able to build the funnel math and the activities. So I need to really be able to map out how do activities lead to objectives that lead to goals. I need to share and coach the rep on that. So they need to know what they need to do, and I need to be able to coach on how to do it. So when we're actually in front of somebody, how do we do if they need that help? I think my responsibility ends. So if they don't want to do these things, or they have a different point of view as to how to get to the number, I might say, well, listen, let's roll up the sleeves and take a look at this. But at some point in time as a leader, I get to choose the sales strategy. I also determine the funnel math, and then you have to be in execution mode. So if you're trying to do the work, so you agree with the what we need to do, but you're having difficulty with the how, I think it is part of my responsibility to help train and coach you.
Yeah.
If you want to declare, though, that you don't like the what, hey, I don't think I need to do that many sales calls. I don't think I need to be on the road 2 days a week instead of, 1 day a week. That's where my responsibility is going to end, because you can't lose your way if I'm a sales leader. So if I've built the strategy and I know the funnel math and I have this point of view, I'm banking on us being able to do it. I have this expectation the team's going to do it. You can't declare you don't want to do that. So right there, my responsibility ends if you want to declare that. Easy decision for me to make. The second time I get an easy decision to make about someone, because you're always wondering, hey, if so many salespeople miss quota, when do I make a move and maybe invite somebody to leave the organization?
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to do the work but not getting the result because of, again, the how, I feel ownership to try and help coach and elevate their performance. But if they don't align with the values and the culture of the organization, I actually don't care whether they're hitting their numbers or not. I'm going to make a move.
Yeah. Brilliant jerk, we call them. You call them the same. Brilliant jerk.
Yeah. And so we're not all completely independent contractors. So one of the values, we have it in the funnel, we just have a client first mentality, meaning if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're tired and you're hungry and you're working and something comes across your desk, your first principle is do the right thing for the client. No matter what it is, do the right thing for the client. If somebody doesn't agree with that, they're not going to last it in the funnel because that's a core value.
Well said.
Another core value we have is just lifelong learning.
Yeah.
So no matter how good you are, you've got to continue to elevate performance and learn and be growth oriented because it's good for you as a human being.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't want to do that professionally, we're not the right spot for you. There's somewhere else for you that you'll enjoy more. So does that help answer the question a little bit, St.
Yeah, I think you answered it so nicely and politely, as all Canadians do. And I mean that with love and affection and respect, because you said that it's really on them. If you've done everything you can do, they've got to walk through the door. My words, not yours. But I think the word that I really liked is that you said they declare themselves.
Yeah.
Now, I use a slightly different word, but I think you were more eloquent than me, which is I say they will reveal themselves.
Yeah.
What happened is when we pitch for business too, I actively sell like you in my sector.
Yes.
And I say to them, hey, there's a few things I need to let you know before we train your team. The first thing is usually we need to train the managers as well. Oh, no, well, the manager just observe and then no.
Right.
And we'll talk about the manager as a multiplier in a minute, as the linchpin. And again, we spoke to your peer, Mark Hunter, about that literally only on the last show or a couple of shows ago. And so I say to the rural business owners or the decision makers, I say, I need to let you know this process will reveal your people to you. You think you know your people, you don't know your people. So as an objective outsider who's invested in more being respected than liked, which I think is an important thing as well, is I'm going to hold them to a higher level, a higher standard and a higher level. And so I always sort of just say that caveat is, I really like your word declare, which I might have to nick and citate to you, but like I would say they reveal themselves. And the funny thing is people do reveal themselves because it's their actions. So if you've done everything you can with your funnel maths and this beautiful, the activity, the objectives and the goals, and I'm showing you the way and you don't go the way, as in here's the what and there's the how, and you're not in execution mode, and then you're talking about your values and your behavior, then I'm sorry, that's on you. Because if I've done everything I can, I now expect you to do the things that we agreed. And the last rant here, it sounds semantical. I think there's a difference between expectations and agreements. So we need to honor this agreement. And the thing that I do, Mark, when I
love it,
the first thing I get in the chat is I literally ask them to say, I will honor the investment.
Nice.
And then we hold them accountable to that. And we say, hey, we had an agreement. And then when we see them not joining or not contributing, or the participant engagement's a bit off, they become famous people. I say that with, love and affection again, and they don't turn up. I'm going, hey, what part of this, do you feel we're like honoring our agreement that we set? Remember what we agreed to? We're going to honor the investment. So yeah, 100%, sir.
Great, by the way. I love all of what you just shared there, brother. I'm going to nick this honor the investment. And I think that's both at the leader level and the team level. And we're quite big on this too, St. Where we're doing training and then you get, a sales leader who says, well, I'll pop in. No. You're co-running the workshop with me because they're looking at you and saying, are you committed? Correct. We just did a wonderful workshop with 120 people in Quebec City in Canada.
Yeah, it was cold, and you had a
It was
police car.
cold. Thank you. You were checking us out on LinkedIn.
I was watching you. I had a drone behind you. Yeah.
Oh, St. that was serious cold. That's
How
a kind
cold?
of serious cold where
Can you
it
do
is a
that in
permanent mark.
Canadian for us? Centigrade. What was that? How cold was Quebec?
Centigrade. What that would have been in the minus 15, minus 18 kind of thing. That was, you're feeling that on your face pretty quickly.
Yeah, I bet.
Right. Your nose and mouth are drying up. It's cold. So I went out to do a couple of fun LinkedIn videos and so forth. But one thing that was really amazing to me was we have an online learning academy that goes along with our training. You get certification. In this particular instance, the first person to go through the training and get the certification before we showed up, the chief revenue officer. And then got up and said, and starts referencing some of the specific data points about some of the things we train on before we started. And what a sign to the 120 people, professionals in the room, many of which who one day hope to be a chief revenue officer, to see somebody get up with that experience and say, yeah, I've been through it, it's great, I've got my certification and so on and so forth. So this is where you've got to walk the walk.
Yeah. Kudos to them. Kudos to them.
Huge.
Because you, as a leader, you need to know the way, go the way, show the way.
Nice.
And sorry, I'm making this sort of stuff up, but
it's great. I love it.
And Dr. Zeus and rhymes and climbs and all those learning things. But I think the point you've made, Mark, here, if you are a leader, and you have this responsibility to get people committed to it, you've got to show them that you're taking it seriously. And I had another wonderful guest. He said he was I think it was Tony, one of our previous guests. And he said he was in Singapore, and the lady, she was the C-suite VP, and she was the front row, and her phone was off, and she was paying attention, taking notes, and the guys kept going in and out. And she said, "Hey, sorry, Tony, forgive me. Sorry for being rude. We need to stop. Guys, I'm here. I expect you to be here fully present.
Fantastic.
Phones off. You'll not go out. There'll be a toilet break in 90 minutes. If you have to cross your legs like me, do so. Pay attention." And so the thing is, the leader is the point is so crucial you're making here. They set the example.
Yes.
And then, sorry, Mark, I'm going to give you another one, which is very Kiwi. We have a All Blacks coach here who was very, very good, Steve Hansen, and his quote was, the standards you accept are the standards you walk by.
By the way, there's a great thing when you start to think of that. If we kind of connect a few dots here, to us, when we were each growing up through business, you were part of certain sales organizations where, looking back, it was so good for you. And usually it's because of the team or the leader or the culture.
Yeah.
Or a combination of all three.
Yeah.
So one of the things I like about, Steve Hansen's quote is he's actually naming the culture. Yeah. Whether it's you name the values or the approach, but I like an idea, St. John, where we may want to create a sales culture intentionally. So you run a workshop with the team saying, what are the values that we as a team want showcased?
100%.
It goes back to your alignment and agreement, because if they weigh in and they participated, then we all decided on this. Now we're going to hold all of ourselves accountable to this.
Yeah. I love how you built on that, Mark. This is why we love having guys like you on the show, because you grasp it and then you make it even better. Because I learned so much talking to people like you, because you're saying, well, that's great on an investment. Well, why don't maybe, and we're saying this to the listeners as well, maybe one of your first sessions is actually going through the values, because obviously you have that in your own organization. We do as well. I have unapologetically high standards. We have irritating attention to detail.
Literally, what you do here.
So I think we've made a really good point there. Thank you for taking it even further. Now, Mark, next question would be, from me selfishly, traditional sales training. I'm going to be a bit provocative here. I think it's broken. What are your thoughts on it?
Let me ask you this. Why do you think it's broken? So I'm known for saying that. So before I jump in and tell you why, why do you think it's broken?
Thank you. And I love the two word. I think the listeners will enjoy this too. I think it's broken because most of it is, I think it's outdated. I think it lacks a lot of psychology and neuroscience. I also think the actual format or the delivery is poor because it's a 1 or 2 day thing.
Yeah.
I think the managers aren't involved and the managers aren't being trained, and they're like, no, well, I'll just watch the training and then I'll reinforce. No, that's not going to work. And I can assure you, and I know Mark will agree with that. But I think the big thing that really gets my wick is you're a professional. I'm a professional. We're practitioners. We're trying to get better at craft. We're lifelong learners. I've obviously still got a hell of a lot to learn. I'm certainly not.
I'm in a club.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress. And so I try and get better at my craft, and the reality is you can't do a 1 day fire hose, churn and burn, cookie cutter one and done, because, Mark, we come against, and I won't mention who they are, we come against some pretty big names, none of which have been on this podcast because they're real big, celebrity almost, Instagram names. And maybe we're a bit more grounded and humble than that. And they said, yeah, no, he came in, he flew in, and then it was sort of like in and out, and there was no follow-up, no duty of care, no connection. So I'm giving you a very long answer to a very good question. I think it's broken because the delivery, I think also the psychology is missing, crucial bits of the psychology, which we teach. And so, unfortunately, everyone's burnt and bruised by sales training. And when I fly over to Australia, which is obviously much more available to me, but obviously North America, Canada, wherever I want to go, and I want to come to Canada too, is I say, if I'm going to come over, do not give me a 45-minute slot on your conference. I need at least 2 sprints. And if you can't agree to that, I can't commit to it, and some follow-up training, I ain't doing it. And if the manager's not involved, I ain't doing it. So, long answer, I'm more interested in yours.
It's a great answer. So by the way, and it's funny, we're completely aligned, with the sole exception of you do some sales training in Canada, stay out of Canada, St. John. Okay? I own Canada, so stay out of Canada. I'm now going to track you. And I don't care if it's farmers in rural Saskatchewan. Okay, that's $1 that should be going into. Just joking.
Exactly. No, but I mean, you. It's just only because I niche. It's as simple as that. Yeah. No, carry on.
So I think he touched on a couple of things. So the gentleman, of course, the gentleman's name escapes me, but the professor emeritus for the University of Chicago came up with a value chain for professional training. This is in the 50s and 60s.
Amazing.
And so you're trying to move up this value chain. And at the lowest levels, it said, first, you want to make sure people have a good time in the event. Okay. Then you move up a level. We want them to learn something. Third level, we want it to impact behavior. Fourth level, if it impacts behavior, it's going to drive a result. So the name, which I'll send after the podcast so people can check out, he's well known for this value chain of training. So if you think of, hey, we're going to run some sort of workshop, we want those, I'd almost add one fifth level to it, and we do when we're talking about it. We say, listen, if we're going to drive a result, then we can drive a return on investment.
Yeah.
So I think there's two challenges that people think of with training. One is the first generation of sales training, which was fantastic, was not that long after what was it? The rock concert we talked about at the beginning, 1985.
1986, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Live Aid. Yeah, it was 80.
Wasn't that long after Live Aid?
Yeah.
So and everybody seemed to get trained, and it was like a one-time event. But we're 40 years from Live Aid.
Yeah.
So a couple things that we have to think of with training today. First of all, one-time training does not work because you can absolutely not impact behavior with one-time training. So people might go to the event, have a good time.
Yeah.
And they might actually learn something, but they're not going to apply it.
No, but the honeymoon, and just sorry, Mark, just to really make this clear for the listeners, do not think that just because one day costs you less, actually it ends up costing you more. Because all you do is a short-term honeymoon hit and run, and then you don't need to be a professor to work out Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. It decays and deteriorates without recall and retrieval, right?
Herman Ebbinghaus has never been uttered by anybody in any podcast except me. This is uncanny. You're like in our playbook so deeply. This one, again, stay out of Canada. So first of all, one-time training doesn't work. Secondly, it can't be a lecture. So it's got to be a workshop. So where you apply some psychology, but the brain science of inoculating against the forgetting curve is, I have to learn something, then I have to do some work on what I just learned, then I have to share what I learned by saying it out loud, and believe it or not, I then need feedback on it. And if I do all of those things, we have a chance of inoculating against the forgetting curve because it imprints.
Yeah. 100%.
So we like this idea of it's not a lecture, it's a workshop. You have to do a little work before you get there. We're going to do work in the workshop. You're going to share your work in a small group. Then we're going to get the best and share with a big group. And somebody in the small group is going to give you positive feedback or opportunities for improvement. And then we need some way of going back to these principles. Hey, what did we say about planning for a sales call? 3 weeks later, the workshop's a distant memory. So that's why we have an online learning academy, St. because somebody wants to go watch a video for 90 seconds to go, oh, that's what we do.
Yeah.
The other key component of that is, you probably know him, the guy, Bucky Fuller, who was the founder of Mensa, candidate for the people with the highest IQs in the world, said, don't ever try teaching anybody anything. Just teach them how to use a tool, and then the tool will continually teach them the concept.
Yeah.
So we're really big on tools and methodologies that continue to reinforce the concept. And the last thing I will throw out is we want to make sure that training or coaching events, in the old days, you'd have somebody up front who knew a couple of things. They pull somebody up, they embarrass them a little bit. Everybody in the room's scared to death. The brain's in the wrong place to learn.
Yes, exactly.
Make the whole thing a safe space.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a workshop. It's a whiteboard. It's a rugby practice. It's not a world championship game. It's a practice where we're going to try some different things and make sure we support people who contribute and collaborate. Those would be a couple of things that we like to throw out. By the way, I think there's some awesome sales training methodologies out there. We love ours, and we love a lot of other ones. And I think there's some awesome sales trainers out there as well. But the key thing for everybody listening is if your company invested in you, because what they're doing when they invest in you is they're helping you future-proof your career, make sure you take and glean some things from the training, and then go to your leaders and say, thank you. Yes. Because if you leave your company, go to another company, you still have that training and that methodology. Lifetime. They invested in you.
It's lifetime. It's like the Benjamin Franklin quote, right? A man that empties pennies into his purse will never forget it. No man can take it away. It's sort of, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So
yes, nice.
Yeah, it's sort of, I'm so glad we're on the same page there. Now, conscious of time for you, sir. I'm really enjoying this.
What a great conversation. You're great at these podcasts, by the way, St. John.
I'm trying, sir. I'm trying. But what I wanted to ask you about is, if there's a rural guy or girl sitting in there, we're not allowed to talk about Canada anymore, so peace, okay? So we're not going to mention that. Got it. Touchy on that. Yeah. And they're sitting in between their farm calls, in between their sales calls, driving up driveways.
Yeah.
What's the one thing from this beautiful book that you could teach them that they could chew on, because they're listening to you right now? And what are some of the things that you could leave with them?
I'll throw out a couple of things. Please. So first of all, the intent for that conversation isn't, let me pitch my product. If they actually go into intent and say, all I'm trying to do is help this person in the next conversation. Cool guy named Dr. Nick Morgan. He's written a couple of books. One's called Can You Hear Me? But he's got some shocking brain science on the power of intent. So because of conscious and unconscious triggers, somebody can tell whether you're really just trying to help them or whether you're trying to help them insofar as you can get a sale that puts money in your pocket. Big difference between the two. 100%. So think about that intent. The second thing is the most obvious question for anybody you're walking up to. At some point in time, they go, St. John, you're a great guy, but we already have a provider doing what you're selling. Why should I use you? We need a very good answer to that question. The answer to that question does not start with, well, I've been doing this for 35 years and I'm a handsome bald man with glasses and you should see me play drums and our business was ranked in Canada as one of... Nobody cares.
They don't care.
They only care about themselves.
I like the handsome bald drumming bit. That's awesome.
I mean, those are kind of key things, but it hasn't won me a lot of sales training, I'll be honest with you. So thinking about that, we call it your value proposition statement, but thinking about that value proposition statement to somebody. And here's the last third easy thing to think about. This comes from a book called Deep Listening by a guy named Oscar Trimboli. So people speak at 125 words a minute, okay? But they think at 900 words a minute. So a lot of what's in their head doesn't get out because they think faster than they speak.
400 words a minute, yeah.
400 is how many I can process while you're speaking.
Forgive me. Yes, you're right.
So it makes it so hard, St. to not interrupt you because you're speaking at 125 words a minute. My brain's listening to you at 400.
Yeah.
So I want to interrupt you because it's hard not to be distracted. But your brain actually has 900 words a minute thinking about. So when you're talking to someone, allow the pregnant pause. Almost no matter what they say to you, go, it's really interesting. Tell me more. Because there's more to come out. They only got 125 out of the 900 out. So really, if we focus on understanding our value proposition, having the intent of trying to help someone, and then actively listening, those would be three things while you're just before you walk into your next sales call that are going to drive a better outcome.
Beautiful. I love those two things. I'm going to squeeze one more. They just had a knockback, which is very inevitable in sales because you and I still actively sell. I don't think you and I have a 100% close or win rate.
Right.
What would be your best advice to them recovering from a knockback or a no or a rejection? I've got my version, but I'm more interested in yours.
Yeah, well, thank you. The best baseball player in the world hits, 1 in 4. Okay? We're in the world of it's not going to be 100% of the time. If you're selling 100% of the deals you're working on, you actually don't have a big enough funnel. So because, this is not internal project management at our company where you can control everybody doing everything. We're actually presenting something to somebody for something they didn't think they needed to spend money they may not have budgeted on our timeline, not their timeline.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 100%. So we have to just understand there's a reason the sales funnel math is the sales funnel math. And if anything, we just try and figure out two things. Is there anything we can learn from next time in terms of what we did? And by the way, is there anything I want to make sure I capture from this conversation for a year from now when I go back and knock on your door again, St.
Yes.
Because I want to remember that you and I talked about Live Aid and Rick from Def Leppard. And I want to make sure that I show you that I heard you with the three things you told me about your business that were really important. Yeah. So outside of food and water, second most primary need for a human being is to be heard and understood.
Oh, hallelujah. Amen to that. And those two books, Deep Listening and Can You Hear Me? Awesome. I love it, Mark, because I learned so much. Now, my friend, I have one last question that we ask all our wonderful guests. What's the one best piece of sales advice you've ever been given? Can you try, if you can, not to repeat something you've said? Forgive me for asking it in that way.
Yeah. Be yourself. Be yourself.
Yeah.
So in the early days, St. you wouldn't recognize me, but young man, big partier, all this kind of stuff. And I thought when I was in, my professional capacity, I had this veneer.
Yeah.
Like I had to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so the tie was perfect, the shirt's perfect, everything perfect. I've got it. And I feel like I have to put on my sales. It was inauthentic. So just be yourself, but be the best version of yourself, and that's going to be great.
Yeah, solid advice. My man, that's so, so good. Now, my friend, where do people connect with you? Is it best to connect with you on LinkedIn? Is that the best way to get this? And
yes,
then
please.
Where else people can go if they go, we like this guy, where do they go?
Well, if you say you like this guy, we got a judgment problem. So right off the bat, so we'll let's park that. I'm Canadian, I have to get it out. It's the humility thing. So LinkedIn's the best way to get a hold of us. It's Mark Cox, in the funnel for LinkedIn, MarkCox. Our website's called inthefunnel.com. And you can always check out the book on Amazon, and thank you. It's called Learn to Love Selling, the Universal B2B Sales Playbook. And I got to call it out, St. The joy of doing this, by the way, on both sides, whether I'm a guest or a host, meeting great people like you. Thank you so much for putting me on the show. What a pleasure chatting with you today. And we'll have you on our show. So
I would love
spin
that.
it around. It's just great to meet you.
Thank you, sir. I know we hopefully ask nicely of our guests. We respect their time. Thank you for being such a good human being, so generous. I can see a lot of work that you've done, Mark, and I mean that with kindness, and the imposter syndrome and everything else, and you being you. And I think you provided real consideration and responsibility to your answers. And thank you for the very kind feedback on it. We're wanting to grow this podcast. We are a very specialist podcast. We are so lucky to get you and Todd Capone and your good friend Andy Paul and Mark Hunter and
great guys,
Richard Harris and David Premier. Like, we're so lucky. Listeners, you are so lucky to get these people on. But most importantly, go and use this stuff. Go and apply it. Don't just take it on.
Yeah.
So reach out to these guys. Use their resources. They're all good guys. We only have good guys on the show. Mark, thank you very much.
My pleasure indeed. Thanks again, St. John.
Hey you, hope you enjoyed this episode and you learned lots from it. It takes a wee bit of work to get these wonderful, amazing guests who are leaders in their own field on our tiny little show, who share their knowledge with you freely and generously. So it makes a lot of sense for me to ask you a tiny favour in return, which is to rate, subscribe, or share the podcast, or grow this YouTube channel with your family, your friends, or colleagues, or anyone in your network that you think will benefit from listening or subscribing to it. The reason for my request is really simple. I'm on an absolute mission to elevate and improve the world's perception and therefore performance of rural sales reps and rural managers like yourself, which in turn helps every rural business owner or leader on the planet. I do that by doing my very best to share the most effective sales and marketing strategies with world-class leaders and thinkers so you can get the leads, respect, and sales results you deserve. But I can only do that when you help me get this channel and our podcast out to a bigger, wider audience. And the bigger the audience, the better our guests are going to be. So if you can help us with that would be brilliant. Now, as you know, unlike other podcasts, we don't include any of those annoying ads that interrupt your listening experience. But I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't make sure that you grab a free copy of my How to Succeed in Rural Sales ebook, which would normally cost you $20 on Amazon. You get that for free as a subscriber or a podcast listener. Or you can find out more about our rural sales team training or rural sales manager training programs. You can do all of this at our resources page, which is below the video here, which is www.ruralsalessuccess.com, where you can click on and download copies of my other books here. I have another book out last year based on Ryan Halliday's brilliant book, The Daily Stoic, and it's called 365 Rules to Master Rural Sales Success. So mastering yourself, mastering rural sales, and mastering rural sales management is kind of a 3-in-1. So make sure you get that as well. And also in the notes below here, you have an access to my free new AI training tool called Field Coach IO, which can talk to you and train you 24/7, anywhere, anytime zone, no lag, no waiting, get answers that you need right there and then for the deals that you're working on. It's got all my IP inside its knowledge base, which is extensive, 13 years of IP that you're never going to access from the likes of Chat or Claude or Gemini or Grok. And you can instantly get access at a touch of a button with no waiting. You can, it will coach you or train you on your specific live sales scenario you're facing, whether it's pricing or timing objections, existing supplier, higher authority, farmers that have ghosted you on quotes, the specific questions you need to ask to make those conversations count. It will even analyze your sales calls for you to put you right where you might be going wrong, as well as map out your territories. It syncs to Google Maps and Google My Maps, and process your export leads from CRM to prioritize which leads you need to follow up with the highly hyper-specific, customized, relevant follow-up you need to get those deals, those dead deals revived in your CRM. So whatever you need, it's going to give you immediate specific answers, and you don't need to suffer or struggle whilst you wait for answers even from me. So immediate instant coaching right there and then, just when you need it. Or even talk to you in your truck as you're about in your territory, which is awesome, as long as you've got great internet coverage. So our members and Field Coach are absolutely loving what it's doing for me. So many more use cases I could bore you with sentences here, and my development team and me are adding new tools to it all the time. So you can take Field Coach for a spin, a 15-day test drive, and try it out, see it out for yourself for just $1. The link to Field Coach is in the notes below as well. So I personally want to thank you, my friend, my dear listener and subscriber, for sharing the show with others. Really appreciate that, because we can make a difference. It's hard, rural sales is hard enough. Thank you for investing your time with me and my guests, because I know you're super busy. It's very busy and noisy out there. You've got many choices and options where you choose to spend and invest your very valuable, precious time. So hope it's been time well spent for you and you've learned something from us and our guests, and it's helping you become a better rep or manager, or you as a human being. Appreciate it and appreciate you.